Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Weekend Wrap Up. It is August 31st, 2024. I'm David Thomas, and this is Mr. Josh Blevins, our man on the street. You've been out quite a bit this week, Josh.
I've been out on the street as usual, so we'll
found
have
a
some
lot of interesting things.
interesting things we'll talk about. A few things went on, so slower than normal week, horse show week. A few people out of town, not quite as much going on, but we still found a few things to talk about. So,
Oh, absolutely. Before we do, let's stop and hear a word from our sponsor, Dennis Young Insurance.
With the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
Again, thank you, Dennis Young Insurance, for being our sponsor here on the Weekend Wrap-Up Show. Josh, I know you've got a lot of stuff to cover this morning. I'll let you jump right in and start talking with Monday. What happened Monday?
Monday, out of the blue, I didn't know about it going into Monday morning, but on the city Facebook, all of a sudden Monday morning, it's like, hey, we're having an airport grant meeting at noon today. So not quite your 48 hours notice you get for most meetings, but this was just a discussion kind of meeting, so it didn't need any kind of, super notice. And apparently I wasn't the only one that wasn't quite prepared, because we had 1 out of 6 council members appeared, and our mayor and a couple other people, and that was about it. So it was kind of a empty room, but they did discuss, which had already been discussed the previous week at the regular airport committee meeting, or whatever they call that we're about to get $6.6 million in improvements for the Shelbyville Municipal Airport, and it's only going to cost us $100,000.
That's a deal.
That seems like a pretty good deal. So they're gonna add what's called an aircraft run-up area, a midfield taxiway. They're going to build a corporate hangar. They're going to remodel the terminal to be ADA compliant, including an elevator now, so you can get up to the second floor.
Wow.
And they're, with whatever money's left over after that, they're going to expand the parking lot.
Okay.
So not a bad deal. A lot of pieces for very little money. Should be a no-brainer. We posted it on Monday while I was at the meeting, and there were some negative comments, honestly, which surprised me a little bit, just in general. Some of them were just, I think, misinformed, like, hey, why aren't you spending this money on roads or something? This is a federal grant earmarked for the airport. You can't go out.
We're spending $100,000.
We're spending $100,000 in money, and you can't take this money and go put in a new water main down Main Street, or you can't put in a red light or this. They're very specific on what you can do with it, and they're going to spend it, where it's allowed. It was mentioned at the meeting, part of the reason that we got this money is MTSU had promised us, when we allowed them to start the process, which has started now, which is moving their flight school down here, that they would help us at the federal level recoup some money that we spent. I think we spent, $3 million plus on that property?
Yeah, I think, but when it's all said and done, it's a little over $3 million.
Yeah, a little over $3 million. And they did pretty good. They doubled our money for, $6.6 million is pretty good return on $3 million.
But that money has to be invested in these things.
Has to go into the airport.
But the people that are making the comments, they automatically see government spending $6.6 million.
Right.
This is money we're getting back that we've paid into our federal government, y'all. So we're getting money back that you normally wouldn't get back.
No, this normally would go to, and they did a bunch of other grants that are actually going to other airports. This one is happening to go to our airport because we had some people with the right connections in Washington that were able to get this pushed through for us. As it's kind of a, it's a handshake deal on the MTSU deal. They were able to get us a return on that investment, and I don't see that it's a bad thing. It's, it's our airport's going to be nicer, and that can only, I don't fly in and out of our airport personally, but the people that do.
I have had mixed emotions about our airport taking on the MTSU training facility. Right. Because it turns our airport into a training facility by the time they get their 60 planes in place over the course of time. So who knows if that was a good move or not until maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, we see what it does. Yeah. I feel like it hinders the ability for us to use it as a corporate executive type airport with the traffic of the flight training. But how much of that do we need? down the road, who knows? It's
Right.
so it's left hanging in the air. We think it's a good thing, or the majority of people think it's a good thing to have the training school here, and it might be.
Yeah.
So this takes some of the blow and expands it in some areas that could help the corporate side.
The corporate side, yeah. And I mean, another plus that's way down the road still. They talked about being maybe 5 years or so. At some point, we're going to air traffic control tower, probably as well.
We're going to need it.
But that would be a plus that we never would have gotten, I'm sure, without that MTSU thing coming here. So,
for sure.
Expansion. So a lot of things going on at the airport, and knock on wood, doesn't look like it's costing local taxpayers a lot of money. So that's always a good thing as well.
Yeah.
While I was sitting at that meeting, my phone started blowing up. First it was my wife, and then it was my neighbors, and it was, hey, the water's out. It's Monday afternoon. Why we got no water? So I drove back home down Union Street there, and sure enough, we had a couple guys from Shelbyville Power and Water there. So I stopped and talked to them for a few minutes. And there had been a water main break there that we talked about a couple weeks ago that was overnight, where it wasn't as noticeable.
Right.
And what happened this time was just a few feet down from that water main break, there was a fire hydrant that got hit by a bush hog, of all things.
Okay.
So they had to replace the poor fire hydrant, and they went to replace the fire hydrant, and the connection underground, part of it, I guess, got put in the 60s. And when they went to put a new hydrant on, things didn't work, and it blew up. So... and that's not the technical explanation. They gave me one. I don't remember.
Right,
I don't know much about water, but
that's a summary.
What I saw was there was a big hole in the ground. There was water running up out of it.
Okay.
So no water on from there west for about 6 hours on a Monday afternoon. And that's kind of part of an ongoing theme that we started last week, where we were talking about Wartrace, where they now, as of this past weekend, they had 6 water main breaks in a 7-day period in their infrastructure. And then I was at the dentist, of all places, this week, getting my teeth cleaned. And the lady there had a story. They bought property in Unionville, them and some other families together at an auction. And they've all built new houses. These are 2-year-old houses. They're too far out of town. Not that Unionville is like city limits or anything, but they're too far out of the area that already has water service. BCUD won't service them, so they all had to get wells. The wells... the water smells bad, she said. It tastes bad. One of her neighbors, the water, you literally light it on fire, and they've put $7,000 into like this massive filtration system and all that. Still totally unusable for drinking, for cooking. So she, every day, has to fill jugs of water in the city while she's here and drive them out to Unionville at home so she can cook and, do stuff like that. And I mean, that's just crazy. Between that and the Wartrace and the problems here, we're supposed to not be in a third world country. Running water is something you expect in your house. I mean, you turn on the faucet, you expect.
How far away is this building, this area of building, from Unionville? Do you know?
I do not know a mileage. I do know they talked to BCUD, and they were told probably the closest connection. For BCUD, it was like a $2 million project to run the water out there. So they're telling them no.
They're looking at the financial side.
Yeah, they're looking at financial side. It doesn't make any sense for them unless they could get some kind of grant money or something from the state or the federal government. There's no reason they would run money out to these 8 or 10 houses for a $2 million.
Josh, I see our water issue from 2 different sides. I see that the water issue where we have lines right now breaking.
Right.
They've been established for decades, and some of them are just aging out. And have got to be replaced. So that's some work we have on our infrastructure to do. We've talked about it.
Yep.
And it's crazy that we can't seem to get it headed in a good direction.
Yeah.
It's just like playing whack-a-mole right now. So we're chasing our tails there. But then on the flip side of it, country living, if you get away from the city, you need to really do your investigative work before you start building a house.
Yep.
Where's my water coming from, and what's it going to be like? And this is a perfect example of not all well water is suitable. Okay. Right. I remember my grandmother had a well at her house. It's just right off Lewisburg Highway, off the main road, back in the 60s and 70s. She didn't have city water. And that well water, it was nasty. It smelled bad. Okay. It was sulfur water.
Yep.
And we also heard something about you could actually light it, the methane that's in there. You could actually ignite it. Okay. So when you step out that far out away, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get water-wise here in Bedford County because we have a lot of different things going on in our geological structure here.
Right, and that's all part of the development that's coming in. There's a reason why some pieces of land aren't developed.
Exactly.
And now as things get tighter and more people want to move in out of the city, they're not going to maybe do their research as much, or maybe somebody gives them a story that's not quite true to sell them a piece of property. And it's on the homeowner, obviously, to do their research, but it's also on, the realtors and the developers. They need to be honest with these people and say, this piece of land isn't developed for a reason. It's rocky, or it doesn't have good water, or whatever reason. It's
another issue too. Yeah. A lot of areas in Bedford County, your septic system is not going to get approved. You're going to have to do this step system or possibly nothing.
Right.
Okay. So you have to do your homework.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to do a better job of guiding people that are coming that aren't used to living and dealing with stuff like that in rural areas.
Yeah.
That are coming from California, from a city, or coming from Nashville or another big city that aren't used to it. They got to learn. They got to learn real quick, or they're going to be in a position like these families are.
Right. And circling back around to War Trace, I just remember something that I told somebody to remind me about yesterday. They've had all these breaks, and they are still sitting on, as far as I know, they got a $637,000 TDEC grant approved in 2023. If they haven't obligated that money, which is a term we ran into with the school grant recently, by the end of this year, December 31st, they're going to lose that money. So we're sitting here, we're about to start September tomorrow. So they've got about 3 or 4 months that they need to get their act together and find out a way to spend this money. There's very specific guidelines, as there are with all these grants, in a way to improve or fix their water system, or their, again, $600,000 that's not going to fix the whole War Trace system, but that could fix some problems. And as far as we've heard or know, they have not spent that yet or even received it. I talked to the Bell Buckle, the people at Bell Buckle Water yesterday, and they got a similar smaller grant, $500,000, the very same time. And they don't have the actual dollars in their account yet, but they've done the paperwork and theirs is on the way. They've got a plan. They've submitted the plan. The state, approves your plan, and then eventually the money shows up in the account. But that's a very important point for the people of War Trace. If you live in War Trace and you're not on your mayor and board of aldermen, I'd be on them like every meeting if it were me.
Yeah,
if my water had been out 2 or 3 times in a week, I'd be like beating down the door at City Hall or something.
I would consider what's going on in War Trace an emergency situation that's been ongoing for a year and a half, 2 years, and even way past then. People
we've heard stories going back 30 years. But
now there's more awareness brought to it, and it escalates the emergency, in my opinion, because this is hurting that area.
Sure. And again, this is like the most basic thing you expect to be in your house and turn on the faucet and water to come out. I mean, when you turn on the faucet and no water comes out, things get ugly quick. It's not like
some of these homes are new developments. Some of them have been sitting there 100 years.
Yeah.
And they've got water lines that have been sitting there for 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And then when you try to tag on new stuff to that old stuff, and the old stuff is failing, well, all the new stuff is not going to work.
No. So there's a lot that needs to go on there, and they're having an election there. The aldermen that are running are unopposed, so they will, I think 2 of the 3 that are coming on maybe are new. So maybe that little bit of a change there in leadership will help them. I know one of the aldermen in particular real well, and he's a great guy and has a lot of experience in city government planning, and hopefully he'll be able to bring some new ideas in there and get some things moving.
Well, Josh, we're not mainstream journalists or anything. We're just a couple guys sitting here talking. So let me ask you something. What is the problem politically that prevents this from getting fixed? Is it money? Strictly, obviously, we got some money sitting over there.
Yeah.
What is the issue there, do you think? It's just...
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm not that plugged into War Trace politics, but I would just imagine small town, you've got a small pool of people to even pick from to be, mayor or board of aldermen in an area like that, and they may just not have the background and the experience to deal with an issue like this. And that's why TDEC has stepped in and contacted, I know they've talked to Bellbug. I'm sure they've talked to War Trace the same way. They're pushing for more consolidation in these little utilities.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, when you get them so small that they just have a few hundred, customers, you can't get the right staffing. You don't have the right money, the right cash flow to deal with these kind of problems. So maybe by consolidating some of the smaller ones into a bigger utility, then you've got more money to deal
Strength,
with. And,
power in numbers, strength in organization.
Right. So hopefully that will start happening, and hopefully sooner rather than later, because I know if I lived there, I'd be really tired of not having water. I can tell you, I didn't have it for 6 hours this week, and I heard about it.
It's
so
no fun.
It's no fun. So that was it on my Monday. On Tuesday, we heard from the Shelbyville Police Department, something that we talked about a couple times over the last few weeks. Their new license plate readers are up and running, and they got their first bad guy with them. So came back, there was a stolen car, drove into town, drove in front of the camera. It sent a little alert to the police, and they're like, oh, we'll catch that guy, and they did.
All right.
And I believe, besides having open warrants, I think they found some drugs and stuff. I can't remember what was in the story. It's on our Facebook, but that was definitely a positive from those cameras. There was a lot of discussion. We had discussed this a few times and not really gotten a lot of comments. But for whatever reason, when this post came out, there was a little more of what I had expected early on, which is like the whole privacy. Do we want license plate cameras? Do we, you know?
Well, here's a prime example of good law enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I can argue on the other side, well, I don't want them watching me.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you hadn't broke the law, you don't have anything to worry about, right?
Right.
Is that it? Is that the real problem? If that's all it's going to do, more power to them.
Yeah.
I think that's all it's capable of doing is reading the tag.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't do a lot of other things. It can't, it can't catch you for speeding. It can't catch you for running a red light. It can just scan the vehicle, and if it's on a watch list, it can send a report to somebody, and then they have to decide if they're going to register.
Excluded to that, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So now the decision that'll be coming up before too long is this is just a free trial. If we want to keep these things, it costs $3,000 per camera per year. So do we want to spend the money? Do we get enough result from these that it's worth,
$3,000 per camera per year, free, that's $9,000.
Yeah, but probably to really cover the city well, what do we got? Like 3 main state highways that kind of pass through town. You need at least six or so.
18 grand. What have you recovered? 10 stolen vehicles.
Right. Yeah, that's the math. You got to.
Is that worth it?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
That's my opinion. But
yeah, if it was your car that got recovered, it would definitely be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that'll be the discussion that will happen eventually at City Council. I don't know if they'll bring it right up after the trial is over or if they'll wait till next budget year, but at some point that will be the discussion. So same day, Tuesday in the afternoon, we had our monthly County Financial Management Committee meeting, and they brought in 3 people from the State Comptroller's Office and talked about the 1981 Act.
So, I hear that 1981 Act so much, Josh.
I know they talk that to death. I told my wife about that. She's like, they don't have a newer one than that. I mean, it's 2024. They've not done anything since 1981. It seems like it might be a little dated. So.
Maybe.
But they claim the 1981 Act is the best thing since sliced bread.
Okay.
So basically, hard to sum up in a nutshell. I got a copy of it, read through it. It's a number of pages long. But basically, at the county level, it consolidates all your different departments. Everything financial related goes through a finance department that has to be headed by an individual that has specific education requirements. It can't just be some schmuck off the street.
Okay.
You have to have, I think it was like a bachelor's minimum. Probably, I think CPA was involved.
And that would be Mr. Robert Daniel.
That would be Mr. Daniel, yeah. And so everything goes through him. It requires this actual committee that I was sitting at, it requires a financial management committee. It lays out who the members of that committee are, which we have we have those. We have, it has to be your school board director, your roads, your 4 individuals that they pick.
Right.
I'm forgetting somebody probably. Our county mayor is on there. And then I believe finance director is ex officio. Right. But that committee is set on there. Now, the thing because I read the act, what it allows but doesn't require, which would be nice, but we don't have it, it allows 3 other committees, a budget committee of 5 members, a purchasing committee, and an investment committee.
Okay.
We have decided, because it allows and doesn't require, we don't have any of those committees. So we've consolidated all our power
in one group.
All our financial power into the one group, the financial management committee.
That's what I've heard argument-wise about a 1981 Act. Is not favorable in some people's views, especially conservatives, because conservative people like to see the money looked at with more scrutiny.
Yeah, a little more
Okay.
separation of power will be nice. And
Right.
again, we could have this, and we've chosen not to, but we could have a budget committee that looks at the budget every year of 5 members that get appointed, and we don't have that. It goes through
Okay.
financial management. We could have a purchasing committee that looks at big purchases. We don't have that. It goes through financial management. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing illegal
No,
about that.
no.
It's standard
So,
practice in other counties.
How do you?
But that's what we have.
How
So,
do you get this in place? What's the process to get these committees? It would have to come from the commission.
It would have to come from the commission. The commission would have to change how we're structured right now and go to add these additional committees. Now we've gone, which this is not in the 1981 Act, and this was discussed at the meeting. We have our other standing committees that we've set up in our bylaws, which is the Rules Committee, the Law Enforcement Committee, and the Property and
Right.
what is it, Courthouse and Property
Courthouse
Committee.
and properties.
Those aren't even in the state act at all. We've done that on our own as part of our bylaws.
Well, it gives everybody a job on the commission in a
Basically,
committee.
it lets them an extra
Well,
meeting every month.
I mean,
where right now, honestly, they're just sitting listening to a bunch of reports.
Well, right
but-
now, why
yeah.
couldn't you just change that to budget, purchasing, and investment committees? Why not create 3 other committees instead of what we have now? So it's all geared around the money, because basically, when you get right down to it, our commission is voting on how we're spending the money. That's about it. I mean,
Yeah.
anything you do, it's tied to money.
At some
It's tied-
point, it's tied
at
to
somewhere
money.
down the road, it's tied to money.
It's tied to money. So we've chosen one way. There's other options. We are where we are, and it'll be up to the commission
Yeah.
or the next commission. At some point, they could change the structure
Sure.
a little bit if they want to. And we are reviewing those bylaws right now. They've not voted on those bylaws
Right.
that we've been working on since January. So they still have the option to go in and it was discussed at this meeting. Some of the conflict that we've had in the last 6 to 8 months over that bundle deal and somehow the budget is voted on could be fixed with some bylaw changes if the whole commission were to agree to them.
Yeah.
So, or if a majority of the commission.
Brian Cruz just chimed in, backing up to the cameras. He
Yeah.
said LPR cameras are very effective too for law enforcement. I recall at least 2 murder suspects that fled Shelbyville being caught with the use of LPR cameras in other cities. So put a price tag on that.
Yeah, see, you
It's
can't
pretty
put a
easy
price tag
decision.
on it. Yeah, I forgot, and that's a very good point. We had the very recent one, the gentleman that was stabbed at Gateway,
Yes.
and that lady was caught with this very system, I think, with the flock
So
system.
there you go.
So
Thanks, Brian, for that. Also, we
Yeah.
have Steve Jordan talking about different things, possibly a town hall meeting. A lot of other issues that we're really not talking about right now, but about concerned citizens of Bedford County. I guess
Yes.
for all the topics that we bring up. All right, sorry about that.
No, that's
Josh,
okay. No, we
interrupt.
love to hear. Yeah, no, and that was a good point by Brian that I should have thought of. Yeah, because it's not just stolen vehicles; it is criminals that are out on the run that they're
Yeah.
able to catch
Yep.
with those, and that's I mean, one murder suspect is worth 18,000, worth a lot more than that a year budget wise. So you couldn't put a price on that. One thing that's not on your rundown that I did after the fact that I wanted to mention as well. Again, at this finance meeting, we got into the trash tipping fees.
Right.
They had the meeting of the group that we're a part of here in the county and the city, and for a 1-year period, our tonnage tipping fee is going to go from $36 a ton to $50 a ton.
Yeah.
That's almost a 40% increase, so $200,000. But that is not the final price. They could not agree on a price, and that was a compromise decision. They expect the price to go way above that $50 amount. They just haven't been able to come to an agreement on what that should be. So for a 1-year period, we're going to have to come up with $200,000 more. Past that 1 year, sky's the limit on what they could possibly charge. And on top of the tipping fee going up, we're looking at about 12,500 tons of landfill, they said this year, just based on our, traffic, number of people and everything going on. They're expecting that to go up to 13,000 and so on and so forth. So in addition to the per ton rate going up, the number of tons we're generating is going up at the same time. So we're getting hit from both sides. So, and both the city and the county are in that same group. I can't remember the acronym for it, but both will be hit by those prices at the same time. So if you live in the city, unfortunately,
You're going to get it too.
You pay county taxes, even though you don't technically get, the county doesn't do trash pickup, but you are allowed to take your trash to the convenience center and whatnot.
We had this warning coming to us.
Yeah,
from
they've
our
told
county,
us.
and our
Yeah.
city has actually thrown out the hint too that
Yeah.
we're okay right now, but it's coming.
Oh, it's coming, and it's coming soon. That one is signed now for a 12-month period, and then the next increase they don't even know.
And you know who pays for that?
Oh,
we pay for that. Okay,
we'll pay for that.
So, do we want to get rid of our trash? Do we want our fires put out? Do we want police? I know I fuss about property taxes,
right,
and I think we should spend our money wisely. But these are things that are going to happen, whether we like it or not.
Oh, this is a basic service. I mean, you're not going to take away trash because,
Nope.
I mean, there's enough litter as it is already. Can you imagine if we didn't do trash pickup in the city, the amount of trash there'd be everywhere?
Gosh, it'd be a mess.
So, no, we don't need that. So we're going to keep collecting trash, and somehow we're going to find a way to pay for it. So Thursday, I had nothing at all on my agenda, and somehow I got dragged in a million different directions on Thursday. So a couple things that went on. We had crew working on a gas line down just off the square at Cannon Boulevard there. And oops, there was a water line that wasn't on the map. I saw a lot of comments when we posted that they hit a water line while they're doing construction. They said, call 811.
Yeah.
They had called 811. They had marked it. This one wasn't on the map. So this was so old that it had been there for years. It was capped off. Nobody knew it was there. They went to drill, and next thing you know, water's coming up out of the street. So, but interesting point, which I put in my article there. You can tell you're in a small town when you go down to the water main break, and you've got your chief of police and your fire chief are the ones directing traffic.
Right.
So it was all hands on deck, and shout out to them for being willing to stand out there and do what normally you would just
when
expect.
It's 100 degrees outside.
Oh, it was hot. It was miserable, and they were down there directing traffic. So so that was great on their part. Quick side story, because I just can't avoid it. It was a little humorous. So I went down there and took the pictures, and we posted our little blurb. About an hour later, we won't mention, but there's a newspaper in town, and they decided to post a little blurb about it. They did at least take their own pictures, but they used our information. But on the write-up about the water main, they said the water main was allegedly unmarked. So, and I thought, I've never heard allegedly used on a water line. The water line didn't murder anybody. It didn't kill anybody, but it was allegedly unmarked.
Okay,
so,
allegedly
just
somebody
if we want to be politically correct,
okay.
It was not an unmarked water line. It was allegedly unmarked.
Allegedly unmarked. Okay.
So that I just,
that means that creates doubt as to who told you that it was unmarked. Might be not telling the truth.
Well, I guess they could be. They could have been an allegation. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something worth lying about, but it was an allegation. Yeah. So, same day, I was on the east side of town, just following up on something totally unrelated, and drove by the Circle K, and the gas sign said $2.01. I said, that's got to be a typo. So I pulled in and looked, and then it flashed at that Circle K. If you've ever driven by it, it flashes two prices. It was $2.01 and then $2.11. The $2.01 was if you got your Circle K card or whatever,
of course.
Which I don't have.
You got to have your Circle K
but
card.
$2.11 was what it said the gas was. So I said, well, for $2.11, I'll fill up. And I filled up. Sure enough, it was $2.11. Well, I posted that on Facebook, and you would have thought we were getting a new coffee shop in town. That was by far our biggest post of the week, 30,000 views. And the discussion went all over the place. From did Joe Biden do this? Is this because Trump's coming into office? Is this? It got very political, and I was just trying to point out to people, go over to this side of town and get some cheap gas. The reason the gas was cheap is Circle K. It was a nationwide promotion. They'd announced it. It was certain area. I think it was from 4 to 7. It was like a Labor Day. It was a gimmick to get people into Circle K.
It worked.
Is what it was. It worked. It got me in. It got them a post here in Shelbyville with 30,000 views. And I'm sure when I was there, it was already the pumps were full. And I'm sure after more people heard about it got even busier. So, thanks to Circle K, I got a cheapest tank of gas we've gotten in quite a few months.
Since Trump was in office.
Since Trump was in office. So. Later into the day, Thursday, something I thought we would just talk about briefly because probably it's one of these things that a little bit might get swept under the rug here is there was a protest outside the Celebration Thursday night. And you said this is something that maybe happens every year. It's an annual thing. But, we're in the walking horse capital of the world. And we always talk all the good things about the horse industry. But there's at least a group of people out there that either don't agree with the industry or they were yelling something about a big lick or something. And I got to tell you, I know nothing about horses.
That's been going on for several years. They come. It's the same organization. It was started probably 10 years ago. they'll show up at random events across the country, across the Southeast where we have shows. But of course, Celebration being the main event, they were live streaming.
They live streamed it.
You tagged that live stream.
Yeah, we tagged the live stream just so people could see that, and I don't have anything against the horse show. Again, I don't know the first thing about it, but it was interesting to me just to see that there is at least a small group, and it was a small group.
It's a large group.
Yeah,
out there, but they're not all coming here. Just the brave ones with the cameras and it was interesting how they interacted with our law enforcement.
They did. They spoke to law enforcement, security, and all that. But it was peaceful, and they did their thing. And I think that it looked like maybe they were there for an hour.
We're in a country that allows that.
Absolutely.
It is a free country.
Yeah, it was free, and nobody locally gave them a hard time. They let them do their thing, and they moved on. So just kudos to law enforcement for they kept an eye on it, made sure everything stayed peaceful. So Friday, we had the ribbon cutting open house for the Glass Hollow Table and Tavern. And man, that was packed. So
been anticipated for a couple years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. We've been waiting for them to open, and we were able to walk through it, and it's nice.
Saw those pictures, Josh.
It's a nice looking place in there. I'm anxious to be able to go in there and have a nice steak on the square for dinner. It'll be a big improvement to the square in the evening. We don't really have a lot going on in the square at night.
Any hint as to when this is going to open?
They're talking some soft openings, maybe in the next couple weeks. They want to make sure they get everything right. Because especially with something that's had this much work put into it, you don't want to open full too early. You get a couple bad reviews or a couple.
It hurts.
Yeah, it could hurt you for a long time. So getting it right, it's better to take a little extra time. I mean, they've taken the time anyways on the construction.
You might as well do it right.
And
kudos to them for this big investment.
Right.
And this amount of time sticking with it, the perseverance that they've had to get to this point.
Right.
And now the next step, they can see the end of the tunnel is right down the road. So we've got to get out and support this business.
That's the other thing. Yeah, when they get open, don't go to some chain restaurant. Go to the local guy.
Exactly. And we can drive to Murfreesboro and take our just our money, and they get our taxes off the food over there. Or we can do it here and support a local family.
Yeah. So I try to eat as often as I can. I try to eat locally here. That and I don't like to drive to Murfreesboro anyway. So there's nothing worth going to Murfreesboro for hardly. So last thing on our rundown, just wanted to really briefly touch on it. There was a editorial run in one of the local papers this week that didn't mention anybody by name, but it did mention, it was an opinion piece saying that journalists should not be running for local office. I don't want to be too full of myself and say that it may or may not have referred to me. It might have, it might not have. I'm the only one that it seems like it possibly could have referred to. But very specifically, it mentioned that the Society of Professional Journalists says that if you are a professional journalist, you shouldn't run for office. First off, we wanted to say, and I'll do this as an apology, I apologize. And if we have ever stated or pretended that we're in any way professional, we're not.
No,
we're a couple guys. Not professional. We are at best news hobbyists or citizen something, but we're not journalists. Part of the definition of professional to start with is you're getting paid for it.
Exactly.
And I know it looks like we're doing well and we're getting well paid here, but honestly, my last paycheck from here had a 0 on it. And that was the only dollar amount on it.
And here,
I don't do this for a paycheck. You don't do this for a paycheck.
Well, we don't really go out and solicit sponsors. We have them. And
we have a sponsor for the show.
And it helps pay for the cost of
equipment.
Doing things.
Yeah, we've got some equipment.
And some of the expenses, we have subscriptions that we have to pay to stream and a lot of things. So we don't make money doing this.
Right.
So the question becomes, why do we do it? We do it because nobody else is.
And we care. I mean, we care. We live here.
Right.
We care what's going on in our local community. And we saw you've done this longer than I have, but back when I jumped in, at that point, there were no newspapers for a brief period of time. And we saw just a vacuum of information about what was going on locally and, politics and whatnot. And you cover the sports as well. I don't do the sports side of things. But we just saw that vacuum and we care. I mean, we want to live here.
The news cycle is so quick now, Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at something that happens tomorrow. People talk about it tomorrow, and then the next day there's something else. So you being out and posting things as they happen and trying to give some clarity to it, it's it's just us wanting to get the right information out as best we can
Right.
with our unprofessional selves.
Yeah.
And we do have a camera, and we like to talk about these things that matter the most to people in Shelbyville and Bedford County.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things that we talk about matters to a citizen of Bedford County or Shelbyville. And that's where we want to stay.
Yeah. And we will not try, and I would never want to use the title of a journalist. I'm not Walter Cronkite. He's not David Brinkley. We're not
Definitely
sitting here. We're not sitting here. And we, as we said many times, we're unapologetically conservative. So if you're looking for something that's trying to pretend, I mean, I'll be honest with you, most of what is mainstream media, they pretend to stay down the middle, and they're as slanted as can all get out.
Yeah.
So we're not even pretending.
No.
I mean, we're to the right. We're about as far
Well, we're
right
not
as
going to
you're
be
gonna
controlled
get,
by an established government. I mean, that's where the mainstream media has moved.
Yeah.
We just want to be independent and conservative.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And there was just a callback I forgot to talk about last week. One of the many comments that was on our post from about a week and a half ago, speaking to me specifically, said I was pretending it's because you cared about the citizens. That's the only reason we're doing this is because we do care about the people here. Again, we're not taking a paycheck. We're not doing this for, there's no fame and fortune that's coming out of being on Facebook.
I have no big business setting up to try to capitalize on.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I'm getting toward my latter years in business, and I have seen this void for a long time.
Yeah. So that's all we're doing here. And again, if we pretended or accidentally said that we were in any way professional or a journalist, that ain't us. So you can find them, though. There are real journalists out there, and you're welcome to follow them. But we're just here doing our little thing on the weekend on the Facebooks and the YouTubes.
And then during the week, I mean, since you've joined up and you're out and about and you get these things and post them out, it's some of it's fun stuff. You know, like the coffee shops. When they're opening, people like to know when there's a new business coming to town. They like to know about this. And then, a lot of the other publications, they do feature stories on individual people, which that's very interesting. Yeah. Everybody has their niche. Our niche is to that hot stuff that's happening today that matters to people.
Right.
That's
and short stuff. We're not out doing a bunch of long form stuff and whatnot. So that's just us, take us or leave us. That's, we are what you're getting here today. So, but with that, not a lot else went on this week. So I think we're going to hear from our sponsor, and then we're going to talk about what's happening next week after Labor Day.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
With the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
All right, welcome back in here again. We thank our sponsor, Dennis Young Insurance, that helps cover some of the expenses of doing this. And for all your insurance needs, give Dennis a call at Dennis Young Insurance. Josh, what we got coming up this week? I know we got Celebration winds down tonight. And then we have Labor Day Monday, which most businesses will be closed.
Everybody's closed.
Hopefully,
long weekend.
Hopefully, you'll get to take a little breath. There's no meetings Monday for you.
There's no meetings Monday. Honestly, my real paying job, I've actually got to work on Monday because I'm a little behind. But that's not on a rundown. The one and only government meeting this week is Tuesday evening at 6:00. We have the City Council study session. And they've got several interesting things. They just put out the agenda this morning, and a couple things that caught my interest. Discussion item, we're going to discuss the local share of the Parks and Recreation Fund grant. That's the possible soccer complex we're getting. So last time the soccer complex went on the agenda, the place was packed. So I don't know if they're going to organize and try to come to this meeting, if they're going to wait to hear the discussion and come to the actual council meeting a week later. But at least the discussion of how we can hopefully come up with the matching $2.5 million to get started on this soccer complex is going to happen Tuesday night at 6:00. Second item on the list also caught my interest. Somebody has asked, it says request to purchase city property, and it gives a tax map, and I looked it up, and somebody is requesting to buy the property adjacent to the Senior Citizen Center. So don't know who's making the request, don't know why, but we'll find that out.
And that's the
Tuesday night.
corner of Eagle Boulevard
Eagle-
and Learning Way, right?
No,
right around
it's
in there.
Eagle
Back this
and
way a little.
JG, some road that I can't remember.
yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
it's literally
Close
right next
there.
to the
Okay.
right next to the Senior Citizen Center. There's going to be some discussion of the camera center system for council chambers, some airport leases, a Shoma Park sign. But then the last one that also caught my interest a little bit on discussion, which I knew was coming down the road. I don't think we've talked about it yet, but you might remember a little piece of property on Jennings Lane
Yes.
that at one point somebody was going to come in there with a chainsaw and
Cut
take
all
down
the
all
trees
cut
down,
down
yeah.
all the trees. Well, they didn't get what they wanted, which was to zone it to R2.
Right.
So now, coming up at City Council, they've decided we don't want to be in your city anymore. They have requested to de-annex that property and go back in the county.
Okay.
So this
it'll be
is
county property again.
It would be county property again. A little bit of an unusual request because normally once you get annexed,
You wanna
you
keep
want to
it,
be in
yeah.
the city because you get city services. Very few de-annexation requests are heard. There's a few odd instances, but this will be an interesting one because we don't hear it a lot.
Yeah, I'll
So,
be wondering what's going on there.
yeah, well, I mean, if they get de-annexed, they don't have to pay their city property taxes anymore. So now, obviously, they're not getting services yet because they never developed
Right.
it. So that'll be their side of it. And I would imagine the council will de-annex it, but it's just interesting because it doesn't normally come up.
Right.
So yeah. Two other things that'll be on the agenda that will be of interest to us is the rezoning on Whitthorne Barksdale Lane to R4, which has been going on. It seems like forever. Was it
Yeah.
at least 3 months? Maybe it's been.
Yeah.
It was ping ponged a couple times,
Yeah.
and then now it's been deferred. So that's back on the agenda again. And then we've now got this Morton Street piece of property that they want to upzone it and put townhomes on. And that's another one that got a negative recommendation, unfavorable, I guess is the word, recommendation from the Planning Commission. So we'll see on this one, are we going to ping pong this one like we did the other one? Or are we actually going to vote on it? It's another one that's a bad idea. The townhomes is just not a good spot because it's right next to where they're about to build other townhomes. It'd be a traffic issue, possibly a safety issue. And planning on this one was unanimous, saying absolutely not. But the city council gets the final say on all these. So we'll see if the city
Feels like the
council has a
movie
different
Groundhog
idea.
Day, Josh.
It does. A lot of this just over and over and over again.
But it's
So
part of it.
that's part of it. But that's it on the city side. No meetings at the county level. But as usual, even though it's a short 4-day week, I bet something comes out of left field.
Left field always.
And we'll talk about it next week. But if not, we'll be here, same time, same channel, right here, talking about whatever's going on in